Hello everybody, welcome back to the Itsy Klein channel. I'm Hatlaida and today I want to talk about caning techniques. So this video is in support of our creative challenge that we're running over on our Facebook group. So if you're from South Africa, I'll pop the link in the description below and then you can come join us and maybe win some exciting prizes. So jumping right into it. With canes, one of the things that you have to keep in mind is a cohesive color scheme, because a cane is sort of like you need to think about the composition similar to how you would think about a painting. You wouldn't necessarily be putting any color that comes to mind into a painting, and you need to consider about how you want it to look. So the cane I'm going to build today is going to be a bit of a more floral type cane, including a Skinner blend with the petals of the flowers. So I've got some souffle pumpkin over here and souffle igloo that I'm going to be making a Skinner blend with. Let me just adjust the frame a little bit. Then I've got some other colors that I'm also going to include in the cane. This one is canary mixed with a pinch of cowboy and a little bit of igloo, also all souffle. This one is primo forest green that I mixed with a little bit of cowboy and a little bit of igloo. And then this one is cowboy with igloo. This one is ivory, just as is, nothing changed. This one is going to be my background color, just because it's a nice neutral color, and if I do need more of it, I can easily get more of it without having to color mix. So yeah. So quickly talking about Skinner blends, there's quite a few ways how you can do them. So I'm just going to quickly move all of those out the way and then bring in my little paper that I drew on. So there is, for 2 colors and for 3 colors, there's different strategies of how you can do your gradient. So if you do sort of a curved combination of your colors, so the one color would be the bottom curve and the other color the top curve, you would have a bit of a more equal shift if your top color that you're using is a bit of a stronger color. So if you have a blend that you want to do with, for example, black, using this strategy is much better than using just a straight triangle, because black is a very strong color, so it overpowers every other color very easily. Whereas white is the inverse again. White is very neutral. So with white, this triangle type of strategy would work very well. If you have 3 colors, the same principle applies. But you need to think a little bit more if you have strong colors involved in terms of where you put your gradient. For example, if you were to put black in this top loop, it would very quickly overpower the other 2 colors. Whereas if you put black in one of the corners and then 2 other colors over here, it would be a bit more of a nice gradient. And then you can also have the sharp triangles. If you were to make a rainbow though, it gets a little bit more complex, because you only have 3 colors, but you want to end up with 6 gradients. So with this strategy, you would end up with just 5 gradients. So you would be going, if you're going in the same progression as this, you would get turquoise, and then your purple over here, your magenta, and then orange and yellow. But because your yellow is not touching any turquoise, you would never get green. So in order to get a full rainbow with the Skinner blend, you have to add in another last triangle. So you would have turquoise, magenta, yellow, and turquoise. Or if you do the yellow, blue, red combination, it would be blue, red, yellow, blue again. This way you would be getting all of the combinations with turquoise sitting on either end. If you like magenta more, if you like yellow more, you can just shift it over so that one of them end up on the end always. But you would unfortunately have to do it this way if you were to do a rainbow. And yeah, that's it about the theory. So moving into practice, I'm going to do the triangle method. So a very easy way to construct that is to have 2 slabs that's roughly the same size, and then just cut it in half, flip the triangles over like this, and then just stack them together like that. So you don't have to be absolutely perfectly neat and absolutely squared off and everything. The blend will take care of most of that. You would notice, however, I left a little bit of orange here on the end, and then the yellow, it has a wee bit of orange touching, the white has a wee bit of orange all the way to the end, because I don't want so much just plain white showing up in my Skinner blend. So I'm going to be twisting that and showing you guys periodically what it looks like. Right, so here's the first pass. So you can see it's not quite adhered perfectly yet, but all you do is fold it up and pass it through your pasta machine again. So now you've got your two sides starting to come together, and again fold it up through the pasta machine, and then just keep doing that. And there we have it. I'm fairly happy with the Skinner blend now. It is quite a nice progression, and yeah, so you can keep working it until it is absolutely exactly the same from top to bottom if you want to, but I'm quite happy with this. So what I'm going to be doing now is setting my pasta machine to a lower number. So I've now set it to number 2, and then rolling it through lengthwise so that this piece will become longer and longer and longer. There's it on a number 5, and then I think I'm going to stop at a number 7. There we go. So this is now a number 7. Nice gradient going through. So what I'm going to be doing now is flip-flopping this edge. Let me just move you guys into frame. There we go. So there's my edge. So then I just fold it like a concertina, and every time making sure that I press on the sides so that no bubbles get trapped in that fold. All right, so you'll notice I wasn't being too neat with this particular section because I didn't want a block that is exactly the same gradient throughout. I wanted this sort of shift and step, because what I'm going to be doing now is curling these edges over like this. So that internal to my petal now we have a bit of a jelly roll going on. And then just make sure that they're all nice and stuck down. Cool. Now I'm going to be choosing a side that I want to be the inside of my petal. Oh, before I do that, maybe I should reduce this a bit. So this now brings me to what I'm going to call fundamentals of caning. It is the 3 things that I learned to keep in mind when doing canes so that you don't end up with a result that you don't enjoy. Number 1 is patience. It does take a lot of patience to reduce a cane. It takes patience to wait for the cane to set before slicing it. It takes patience to work with the clay into a space where they are not being funky. Good example being now, as I'm rolling this, I'm being a little bit too hasty. So my inside is pulling in while my outside is being pushed out. And a way to prevent that from happening is to every now and again take your time and press your cane back open again. It does mean you'll have to work back down to reducing it again slowly, but it's better to do caning slowly and taking your time to do it proper than to end up with ends that are squished beyond recognition and unusable effectively. And the second tip around caning that is very important is having volumetric awareness. So what I mean with that is, with a cane, every open space is a opportunity for distortion. So if you don't take your time to fill in every open space perfectly and making sure that every part fits in very nicely, you're going to get into a position where your cane distorts beyond what you are happy to live with, and then that's going to mean that you essentially waste the entire cane just because of not taking the time to fix open spaces. And then the third thing is slicing technique. So slicing technique is something that is incredibly hard to get right because, again, it takes patience. If you slice too fast, the way that it looks like they're slicing on the reels, you're going to not get a equal result of the slice that you're taking. It's going to be distorted. It's the same as when you're cutting bread. If you cut because you're hungry and you want to finish a sandwich now and eat it now, you're not going to have straight slices either. And very much the same with caning. So be patient, take your time, make sure that you do the slicing correctly and at the right time as well. So yeah, that's just my 3 pro tips. Number 1, patience. Number 2, volume awareness. And number 3, slicing technique. So I'm going to now cut this one that we have rolled. There we can see the gradient with the jelly roll going on. Isn't that cute? I'm going to be taking, let's say, 6 equal slices to build up my flour. Oh, that's a little bit short. There we go. Oh, it's too cute, man. Cool. So now I'm going to be pinching down a little bit where that curl is coming up, because I want that curl to be sitting in the center of my flower. And I'll be doing that with every petal. Cool. Then I'm going to be taking my white. This is not white, this is yellow. I don't know why I keep calling yellow white today. And then rolling that into a bit of a sausage. It's working all the air bubbles out there. If you're wondering what happened with my finger, my husband bought me a new knife set for my birthday last year, because I do most of the cooking in our house, and I think this one would be thick enough. And yesterday morning I was making him a sandwich for work and I forgot my knives are sharp. So sharp. So yeah, I cut myself a little bit. Let me just cut off this top here. So this comes down to spatial awareness again. So this little bip, as you can see here, it's slightly thinner than that side. So what will end up happening is that within your cane, when you squish it, the side that has the slightly thicker side will look different than the other side. So when you take your slices, it's going to end up looking slightly different, which might be something you're looking for. It might be something you're not. It is entirely up to you. So I'm going to be stacking my flour now. So what I like to do is just press them ever so lightly, so that if you want to change something, like I noticed the swirl was going to the wrong side now, you actually can. You can just peel it back off and put it back on. Carry on with your life. Oh, it was also going wrong side. Here we go. There we go. So you see all that space there? That is where the distortion will happen. So take your time to get your pieces to touch both front and back the way that you want them to be touching, so that when you reduce your cane, they're going to be looking very similar to what they look right now. If you need to take a piece off and reshape it or squish it smaller, then take the time to do that. Don't be hasty and end up with a result that you don't like. Right, so I have a feeling this flower would want some tiny bits of the background color in between the petals to fill in those little gaps that you can see there, because if you squish it now, this circle are not going to stay around. It's going to deform into more of a hexagon type of shape, which is not necessarily what you want. So I'm going to be taking my background color and then rolling tiny little sausages. And I'll be opening up my cane, inserting a sausage, or even 2 or 3 if you feel it's necessary, and then closing it up again. There we go. I like it. So now with canes, it's very important to think about your final shape as well. So a flower like this, it would be good to build this into a circle. One of my thingies are going wrong. Several of them are going wrong. Hang on, what happened here? There we go. Sitting all the right side around again. Cool. Let's just check both sides. Cool. Okay. Now to get this into a circle, it would be good to fill in those corners, because if you just roll this now straight, you're going to lose that petal definition that's going on. So you could use one of two strategies, either by squishing a strip and then making a sharp corner on one end like this, or by the sausage method that I've just shown you guys. So I like the sharp corner method because this way you can know that that sharp corner is going to go in between the petals and not just sort of get stuck somewhere. There we go. So you can see there how it goes in between the petals rather than just sitting with a little bit of a gappy. And then you just keep going. Cool. So once you've got all of your corners filled in, now you can put a layer of the background color around your little flower so that it's ready for building into the full background. I'm just going to roll this down a little bit thinner quickly. It's currently on a 0, so I think I'm going to make it a 4. Bear in mind, every layer of additional background color you put around anything is going to increase the bulk of your background that you have within the final cane. This strip. Cool. Then just press that down nicely all around, making sure that there's no bubbles trapped between the layers. If you've got extra bulk like that, all you got to do is cut it off, because as you start reducing your cane, that is just more and more opportunity for distortion. And there we have a little flower. Cool. So setting all of these aside, let's make a little leaf. Just going to run this through the pasta machine again. Okay, so to make a leaf, oh golly, this doesn't even look green on camera. I promise it's green, not turquoise. What I'm going to be doing is forming this piece of green into a leaf-shaped log, making sure not to trap any air as I'm rolling it up. So I'm going to be pinching one side into a sharper end, then squishing the other side into a more of a fatter end. Now, something very important to keep checking is the height of your canes, because if you want to be building this cane in with this one, they need to be the same height, so that when you reduce it, it's not going to push into the ends and end up distorting. Cool. Once I'm happy with my leafish shape, I am going to cut down the middle, and then I've got this piece. This is currently on a size 0, so I'm just going to roll that down to a size 4 about. Yeah, I think 4 should be good. Cool. So now we have our 2 halves of our leaf here. I'm going to open it up and lay 1 half down on this brown section, and then with my craft knife just cut that shape out. If you cut off little bits of the green, that's alright. You can just peel it off the brown again and continue working. Like this one. Just set that aside. Then lift up our leafy. Now before I marry the two, I'm just going to gently touch them just to show you guys the end result now. So now you've got an insert in the middle there. So now to do our little veins, what I'm going to be doing is, as they're sitting like that, here's my leaf, I'm going to just cut down the way that I want the veins to be sitting. So this way and this way, and then standing them up like that so I can remember how they should go back again, and then doing the same thing where I want the brown to come in, I just lay it down and cut out the shape. Don't worry about being too perfect with this particular step, because we are going to be cutting off all these excesses. So all of that little bitties we're going to cut off just now. So now this leafy, oh, which way around did it go? I think it's that. Yes, cool. So now we can squish these two together again, making sure to line up those edges nicely, both top and bottom. There we go. I then do it for this portion again. There we go. And then stick that down again. Cool. So now before we join the rest, I'm just going to take my craft knife and cut off this excess outside. Cool. So I'm going to put them together. There we go. And then transfer this center section from the one side to the other. There we go. So now you'll notice the top has shifted a bit. it is because we built in bulk here and there. I like to leave it that way because then if you make more than one leaf, that shift is consistent and it actually ends up looking more natural. And then we do the exact same thing with the other side. So there's our side. Want the veins to go like this. So cut down, cut down. Okay. They're together. And then same for this one. Cool. Okay, so I'm just going to, oh, that one's not sitting too well there. Cut off the excess again. There we go. Join our little leafy. There we have it. Look at this cutie. Cool. So I'm just going to press this a little bit just to adhere all the pieces nicely. Make sure they won't come apart. Then I'm going to be rolling down this a little bit because I have a plan. Back to number 4 just so it creates one big piece again. Cool. Okay, there's our bitty. Now I've got this piece of background, so I'm going to be laying this edge to edge over each other, not pressing too tightly, just gently, and then measuring this boy how thick he is. Gosh, you guys didn't see it, so I just hold him there and then made 2 cuts for how thick he is, and then cut down on these 2. So now I can lift this back up again just to keep my colors intact, and then take this little bippy. So this is now essentially a double layer. Make sure there's no air trapped in between. Then hold it so that it's, yeah, it'll make a nice stem. So if this is now the top part of the stem, I'm going to just cut these 2 equal and then jelly roll this boy. Oh, I need to jelly roll that way because otherwise our stem is going to have a fat bippy at the bottom. Once it's jelly rolled a little way that way, I'm going to insert a little bit here. And fold it like that. Make a wee sausage just to support that boy. Oh, This clay does not want to stick to itself, eh? Just to support that one there. And then I'm going to be attaching that as the stem for this leaf, like that. Okay, so I'm quickly going to wrap this one and then attach the stem, build up a bit so that it ends up folding around our little flower like this. So you see all those open gaps? I'm going to have to fill those in. Cool, I'll be back. Well, I'm going to be doing it on camera, so you can watch. Righto. So here is my pretty much completed cane. As it stands right now, if I were to reduce this cane, I cannot, well, I would be hard pressed to maintain the shape of this cane. So you see that there's a missing piece over there, and there's a missing piece. If you were to change this into a square cane, and if you were to want to push this into a circle cane, you're going to have a bit of distortion happening because there's an extra piece. You'll have to add additional clay to build it up into more of a circle like that. So you can now go ahead and add additional elements on the sides if you want to. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing now with it. I had no plans for this cane's finished product. I think I'm going to try and reduce it within this shape and see. It is possible to do it, it's just you have to be aware of it. No, I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to make it into a rectangle cane like that by adding some extra bippies on the sides. Maybe, yeah. Let's do this. Mm. Cool. So, because my concern with these yellow inserts that I made was not so much whether they're going to distort or not, and I actually want the distortion, I left those little gappies there, but the shape is more squarish now, so I can actually reduce this. Cool. So with reducing, there is something you might see some caners do where they twist the cane when it gets a little bit thinner and more flexible. I have no idea why they do that. What I can tell you is if I do that, my end result is significantly better than if I don't. So I don't know what the science behind it is, but it is quite interesting. So to reduce a square cane, other than when we reduce the circle cane for the petals, you need to be careful to apply similar pressure right around. If you try to keep your ends neat and you do have some sort of shape like the circle-ish flower, then it's easier to see when you put too much pressure because that flower will start distorting in one side or the other. And yeah, but like I said in the beginning, patience is key. If you try to go too fast with this, you are not going to have a good result, because as you can see as I'm pressing it, it's shifting, and if you go too fast, that shift is not going to be happening equilaterally. It's just going to be shoving in all sorts of directions, and then the end result is not going to be pretty. You know, when I started out this cane, I told myself, don't use too much clay. What did I end up doing? Use too much clay. That's the thing with canes. You always end up with more than what you bargained for. You think you're going to be making for just one or two things, and then you can store it for years. On that note though, you can store canes. Just make sure you store it in a plastic container or such that's airtight and dust free. And if you store it for too long, they can become brittle, but you can revive them. There's quite a few strategies out there about how to revive them. What I tend to do is just store the pieces that I know I'm not going to be using in a not so reduced state, so that I can then reduce them when I want to use them again. and in reducing them, essentially revive them, because you're moving the clay around and sort of conditioning it again when you are reducing. So something to note though, these ends are absolutely never going to be perfect or usable. You can try and keep them in a pretty-ish state as much as you want, but they are never going to be perfect. But the neater you do try to keep them, the less waste you're going to have on the ends. So if I were to cut this cane right now, I would probably be able to use up until about here of the cane. And the more you reduce, the further that portion is going to become if you don't pay attention to your ends and at least try to keep them neat. You would also see some people use rollers with square canes. I've tried it once in my life and I had horrible results. So I honestly would not recommend them unless you are extremely proficient with canes and you know what you're doing. Because when you're pressing with your palm like I'm doing now, you can tell where you're applying more pressure or less pressure. Whereas with the roller, you can see the distortion, but it's very hard to tell where is less or more pressure. Yeah, it's a tough thing. So as you can see now, my ends are starting to get more and more distorted as I'm working this, but they are still, the shape is still sort of recognizable, meaning that the inside of this cane is still good up until about where those distortions start leaking up. Alright, this cane is pretty much where I want it now. So you can see the distortion on my ends are quite pronounced at the moment, which is fine. Now, I have just finished reducing this cane. This cane is now very hot. I have used souffle for the most part, so it does tend to handle caning quite a bit better than other brands of clay does, because with most brands of clay, the more you work it, the softer it gets, whereas souffle tend to hold up a bit better. But you are going to see this phenomenon now, where if I cut this now, because I've literally just worked with it, you see how it dented down there? That is because this clay is still hot. It hasn't been resting. There's a little bit. But yeah, so there's the internal results. My little dotties, as you can see, because I haven't been careful about how I place them, they have quite a fair bit of distortion. They are not at all round anymore, which is exactly what I expected. However, my flower is looking really nice. Oh, focus for me. Come on, you can do it. Does it not want to focus? Oh, golly. I'll post a picture of it or something. But because we put those little inserts in there, the circle is kept intact and it's looking very nice. The leaf has distorted quite a fair bit, but that's alright. It's more about the flower for me. And yeah, so now bear in mind, this is from a fair close bit of the cane, so you can see there the distortion happening there, which is why this circle is not complete. So this particular piece, if you want this entire picture to be what it is, it's not going to be usable. So yeah, I'm going to now let this piece rest before I cut more into it, because if you cut into it and it makes that indent, you can turn the cane and cut from the different side all the time, but you're never going to have a nice square result that you can stack next to each other in order to get a nice veneer or something like that. I see there was something on my blade that scratched over the surface as well, which does remind me, be mindful of using glitter clay when you're doing canes, because with glitter clay you're going to get this effect with those stripes over. So I know it's now because I didn't clean my blade before I cut, because I have no intention of using this piece. But if you were to, let's say, put glitter on the outside and you cut through, your blade is going to catch those glitter pieces and push it down all the way. So you'll have these stripes over the surface of your little veneers that you're going to take off every time. It's no getting away from that. So expect it when you're using glitter. Try to stay away from glitter in canes if you can. It's just one of those things that happens. So yeah, cool. I'm going to let this rest now for probably about an hour or so, and then I'll be back when I'm ready to cut it. Righto potato. So our cane have been sitting now for a day. I ended up not finishing this video last night, but I'm going to cut it now from the other side to show you guys what it looks like when you cut the cane with having waited an adequate amount of time. I'm going to cut a little bit deep. So now you can see that was our first cutting edge. You can see how it slightly bends in, and now that we have waited, it's completely flat where we have cut, so we can just continue to cut down here. This is also now a good point, because that's where the distortion on the outside ended up ending. So all this, all the slices going inward from here is not going to have any distortion whatsoever. So I'm quickly going to take another thinner slice. So now with these slices, if you've waited enough time, they are going to be easier to take nice thin slices with. And as you can see, I'm going very, very slowly so that as the blade goes through, I can adjust as I need to. So you can see there on the end I cut a little bit too thin, but the design is still intact, and this is now a very nice thin slice. So I can now lay this onto another slab or something like that, and or even roll it around a snake if I wanted to make an earring. I'm going to take another one. I'm not going to talk this time so I can concentrate. There we go. So we frequently see that these cane makers use those Lucy clay cutting machines in order to get these super thin slices. But with practice and with patience, it is absolutely possible to get it by hand. So yeah, there we go. That is it. Yeah, I am not the best with caning. I'm going to be the first to admit that, because I don't have a lot of need to practice this. I do have one customer that's like to have their logo as stitch markers, for which I make canes, but the logo is fairly easy to do in a cane because it's got quite a fair bit of geometric shapes, none of this organic floral type of shapes. But yeah, that's it. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed watching it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more adventures of the upcoming things. I will be covering how I personally do videos later. It is going to be more of a sort of my experience type of video rather than a this is the best way of doing it type of video. But yeah, so that is it. I'm Gertruida from Itsy Klein, and thank you for joining me on this journey. Bye.